Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to Sundays with the Braid. My name is Daphna Scholl. I am the creative producer, as well as your Zoom master for today's conversation. We're so happy that you're here. Please let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat below. I'd like to welcome you to this conversation with Maestra Dr. Noreen Green, who is the founder and artistic director of the Los Angeles Jewish Symphony and a world-renowned expert on the subject of Jewish music. Today, our conversation is moderated by novelist and playwright Lisa Rosenbaum, who has personally collaborated with Dr. Green for her play Stories from the Violins of Hope. I have a few technical reminders. As always, we're happy that you're here. We do mute people throughout just to make sure we don't have any accidental interruptions during the conversation. Your audio, you also do have, excuse me, a closed captioning option. So you can click the CC button at the bottom and text will pop up and you can be able to see the text as the conversation is progressing. This event is being recorded, so we will have it available on YouTube later on, probably in a day or so. So if you liked the conversation, want to watch it again, if you have friends or family who are interested, you think in checking it out afterwards, it will be available for their viewing pleasure. We also will be having a Q&A at the end, so hang tight. And if you have any questions for Dr. Noreen Green, please chat those to me. I will do my best to field as many as possible. Now, I think I have spoken more than enough. I'm going to pass it over to our moderator, Lisa Rosenbaum. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, thanks, Davna, and welcome everybody to Sunday with the Braid. I am especially excited to introduce my guest, Dr. Noreen Green, today because we've had the pleasure of working together, as Daphna mentioned, on a project called Stories from the Violins of Hope, which brought together my play, my text, and her music, her curated music. And I've been a big admirer of her career. She's well, as the founder and as the artistic director of the LA Jewish Symphony, which is actually now celebrating its 30th year, which is incredible. She's really been a trailblazing and inspirational conductor and lecturer, renowned for her knowledge of Jewish music, which she has shared with hundreds of school children. Bringing together the Jewish community and multi-ethnic, diverse communities in the larger world, which is a beautiful, beautiful idea. Noreen's also conducted with orchestras all over the world and worked with musicians and artists, including Melissa Manchester over here. And
that's Tova.
Excuse me, this is Tova Feldschuh. And Itzhak Perlman, who attended the Stories from the Violins of Hope concert, which Noreen conducted. I think also Theodore Bickel. Yep. And that's Hershey Felder over there. There is Melissa Manchester. Okay. I'm going to stop there because there's so many other people that Noreen's work with. But I want to begin with a question, which is the essential one, I guess, for the work that she does. What is Jewish music and how do you define it, Noreen?
Well, that's the question of the ages, isn't it?
Yes.
I think many people have talked about what is Jewish music. Is it a Jewish composer that creates Jewish music just by the fact that he was born Jewish? I don't think so. Is it music that uses the Jewish tropes and the nigun and the different motives that we find in the Torah and in prayer modes? Is that what makes Jewish music? Not for me. For me, Jewish music embodies what the Jewish experience is, whatever that means to that composer. So there are composers that are not necessarily Jewish that have been inspired by Jewish themes. For instance, Prokofiev. He wrote Overture on Hebrew Themes because all of his students were Jewish and asked him, can you write a piece for us? And he said, absolutely. Shostakovich wrote from Jewish folk poetry because he was inspired by Yiddish poetry to create an entire oratorio based on these beautiful poems in Yiddish, which he then translated into Russian and hid it in a drawer so that Stalin wouldn't know that he was writing on Jewish music. And then, of course, the Holocaust inspired a lot of composers to write on Jewish music, non-Jewish composers and Jewish composers, and then the state of Israel and all of the influences that it has on its people has also created Jewish music. So for me, it's the experience of the composer that creates Jewish music, and it's subjective. It's what I take on as a project. It's that theme, that Jewish music theme that resonates with me, that I then create programs around that. So that's my
I
answer.
think, yeah, this is probably a perfect time for us to see a little video that your team put together. Thank you very, very much. It's about 2 minutes of clips of exactly what you were just talking about. What is your idea of Jewish music, but you at work? So Daphna, let's see that.
Lots of varied stuff.
Lots of very varied stuff. Thank you. That was wonderful. The thing I noticed when I was watching this is that you conduct with so much passion. And I just want to ask you, first of all, what drew you to Jewish music in the first place? Why is it so meaningful to you?
Well, I grew up in the temple. I actually grew up at a Dot Ariel when it was Valley Jewish Community Center. And I sang in the choir right after I was bat mitzvahed. And I had a very inspirational cantor, Cantor Alan Michelson, who really instilled the love of Jewish music and going to temple and hearing it. I then went to college and got a degree in music education. And when I got my first job, it was at a Catholic high school, Alamania High School. And it was interesting at that time because here I had studied all of this classical music and have a degree in music education. But I always had this desire to program Jewish music, even at the Catholic high school. So I would always introduce a Jewish piece because you got to be a good Jew before you can be a good Catholic. And the kids resonated with that. And then I couldn't continue teaching at the Catholic high school because the first line of the contract said you will teach the teachings of Christ above everything else. And I couldn't sign it anymore. At 21, when you get your first job, you sign anything. But 2 years later, I couldn't do it. And I got a job at Temple Matzion, working with Farid Dardashti, who was a Persian cantor. And I learned a whole other style of Jewish music by working with Farid Dardashti. During that time, I went and got my master's and my doctorate. And I was teaching at Cal State Northridge. And I always made it a point to include a Jewish piece in all the repertoire that I did that had nothing to do with a Jewish organization. Of course, I was working at Temple Ramat Zion and I was learning Jewish repertoire. I was also working at Heschel Day School. I also was teaching a Yiddish choir. It just kind of fell into my lap that I was surrounded by Jewish music and learning more and more about the vast repertoire out there, while also in the classical world. But I always wanted to bring in Jewish music to that classical world. When I was looking for a topic for my treatise, which is what a Doctor of Musical Arts does. We don't do a thesis, we do a treatise. I happened to go to a concert of the music of David Novakovsky at Royce Hall with the Roger Weiner Chorale. And it was this beautiful orchestra and choir and soloist. And I had no idea about this Jewish art music other than a few of his pieces he wrote for high holidays. And that really spurred my interest. And I chose David Novakovsky to be the subject of my doctoral treatise. And I delved more into his music and the time of when he was writing, which was, he lived from 1867 to 1917, so right through the Russian Revolution. And he was considered the Bach of Jewish music. He wrote a cantata every week for the Brody Synagogue, and he used singers from the Odessa Opera House. So he was incorporating the non-Jewish singers into his choir. Of course, the boys were all from the day school or whatever they called it back then. And as part of that Novakovsky journey, I was invited to a festival in Odessa, which is where Novakovsky was, by a gentleman who was Israeli, Joseph Dorfman, who was Russian and had emigrated to Israel, who was setting up Jewish art music festivals. So I went as a guest to talk about Novakovsky in the land where Novakovsky, in the city where Novakovsky worked, and nobody knew about him. That's another whole Zoom lesson. But at that conference, I heard so much Jewish music that I wasn't aware of, by Israeli composers, by European composers, art music. And it really like clicked, like, where's all this music coming from? At the same time, I was going to Aspen, which is the Aspen Summer Music Festival. And at that Aspen Summer Music Festival, I was one of the conductors. We had to put together our own ensemble. And I chose to put together a ensemble and to promote some of this Jewish music that I had just been in contact with. So I did, and this is kind of how the Jewish Symphony also started, if I can kind of continue with this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Right, exactly. I mean, with all this academic background, you could have gone in any direction with that. I mean, you were already lecturing about the whole subject, and I think I saw something that you were talking about Jewish composers in Hollywood and how they affected the impact.
That was after. That was after.
Yeah, but you've got this whole academic background,
right.
and you could have gone. I mean, you could have stayed in academia, but you chose to create an orchestra, which is no small task. I mean, that's a lot of heavy lifting. Why? Why did you decide to do that?
So at Aspen, I put on this Jewish music concert, and my conducting teacher sat me down the next day and said, "This is your niche. This is niche. This is what you need to do. There's an orchestra on every corner in Los Angeles, but there is no Jewish orchestra. And you have the passion for it." He saw that in me. Sometimes it takes somebody else giving you the seed, right? And the seed then grows. I had just gotten married, and my husband, Dr. Ian Drew, he really thought this would be a wonderful way to give back, to have this be our tzedakah, to have this be our meeting. I had taught at 10 years for Cal State Northridge. I had taught at Cal State Bakersfield. I had taught at USC. I was on, the track to become a professor, tenured professor. But life gives you roads to choose, and I chose to get married and to work with Ian on this idea of formulating a Jewish orchestra. So we did it 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's now 30 years later. Where did you get your musicians from? Who are they? Are they all Jewish, for example? How do they relate to this music?
So it's illegal to have an all Jewish orchestra. So you can't do that legally. But what I did was I called Mark Kasper, who was helped me out with some of my doctoral recitals as a violin soloist. And I knew right when this was all formulating in my mind that the most important person to have as a leader of the musicians would be someone who was dedicated to Jewish music and the preservation of Jewish music as much as I was. And Mark Kasper, who came here as an immigrant from Russia, was a member of the LA Phil. So he is the highest caliber of musician, but he also has a Jewish neshama. And when he was the first call I made. I said, Mark, will you be my concert master on this journey? And he said yes. And so it was from there then that we looked at who our musicians were going to be. I try to hire as many Jewish musicians as possible, but sometimes I couldn't find a French horn player that was Jewish. So so, but every musician that has been involved with the Jewish Symphony are part of the Jewish Symphony family, and they resonate with the music in a different way, even if they're not Jewish, because it's music that they haven't played before. Most of the music I program, other than Bernstein, Gershwin, Copland, and some of the big names, is music that the musicians are not familiar with. And so they feel like they're on this journey with me to teach about the music. And one of the things that Murray Sidlin told me is to always talk about the music, because it's important for people to have some kind of reference to why I chose this music. So every concert has a theme. And then I choose subjectively, obviously, music that resonates with me, but objectively what fits into the theme. And it's, for me, curating the concert program is the most important part. So that's what happened. And that's who the musicians are.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I was wondering, how you create a program. What informs your decision about what to choose, which Jewish music to use for a particular program. I don't know if you quite answered that, but
it's very clear. So usually what happens is there's one piece that resonates with me, and I think about how that piece fits into the larger global Jewish world. So for example, one of my programs was Gesher L'Chaim, Bridge to Life. Okay, and that was where we did Holocaust themed music, and then we did music of Israel. And that theme has resonated with me, and I've called it different things. Also, the Holocaust-inspired music has been very prominent in my programming, and so, but I didn't want to do always remembrances or darkness to light. So I created a concert called Triumph of the Spirit, which is about the composers who use music to survive, with resilience and with survival skills. And that concert, Triumph of the Spirit, is something that we've repeated many times, and it's also part of our education program as well. I also came up with this idea of the Latino population here in Los Angeles, and how we as Jews and Latinos have a shared history.
Right. I mean, that led you. I just want to ask you, before we get into that, where do you perform with your orchestra? I mean, are you just in LA? Because it's a lot to move that orchestra around.
We're the Wandering Jewish Orchestra.
Yes.
So we've performed at every major venue in Los Angeles. We performed at many synagogues. At first, we performed at synagogues because venues didn't know about us, and renting a venue is very expensive unless you're on their program, you're on their series. So we performed at Valley Beth Shalom, where I was the music director there. That was one of our main venue spaces. University Synagogue, which is now Wilshire Boulevard Temple Resnick. That has a beautiful space. We performed there. But we've done Royce Hall, we've done Disney Hall, we've done the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Auditorium, we've done the Ford Amphitheater. We're there for 14 years, the Saban Theater, and now at the Soraya, the new beautiful venue in the Valley.
It is beautiful.
Yeah,
so but it's in the LA area. I mean, you can't move this whole orchestra.
Well, no, we have done a little bit of outreach. Like we have gone to Palm Springs. We did a couple concerts in Palm Springs. We've Glendale, and that's still LA. Palm Springs is the furthest we have gone. And then I've taken my soloists to contract with other orchestras. So in New York, I did a contracted, we took 3 of my soloists there with the contracted orchestra. In Israel, same thing. I took 4 of my musicians with me to Israel. We was
the chamber group.
No. It was Mark and Barry and Wendy Prober, who is our pianist. The 3 of us and we all went to Israel as part of the partnership, the Tel Aviv partnership, and we performed with the Reuben Academy Orchestra there. That was our Cinema Judaica program. When I went to Australia, it was just me, and I performed with whoever was there. So it depends, you know. I just got back from Nashville. I brought a soloist with me, Adam Milstein from the Recovered Voices Project. So every project is different and has its own.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you about a patchwork of cultures, because as someone who shares your belief in the importance of reaching out to other communities, really, to create bridges, I'm really moved by this project. You go to schools. I mean, just talk about it, what its purpose is and how it came about.
So the education program is called Patchwork of Cultures, the Latino Sephardic connection. And we use Sephardic music as a bridge between the Latino population and the Jewish population. We've been doing this for 18 years. Our first grant we got from the NEA, and then it's been funded by grants since then. And we have teaching artists. We have a curriculum, and the curriculum talks about how did you come to America? And the immigrant society, what is your story? We tell the story of the Sephardic Jews and how they were forced to leave and forced to immigrate. And then we relate it to our own personal stories. I tell the story of my grandparents and how they came to America. And every teaching artist then relates it to their personal story. And then we ask the children, the students, to be detectives and find out about their story. Now, it gets to be complicated because in LAUSD, there's a lot of kids who don't know their story. They don't know their parents' story on how they got here. And sometimes the parents don't want them to know. So we have to be very careful on how we approach this subject. And then once they know their story, we talk about the oral tradition of music and how music has been passed down through the generations by people singing, grandma singing to grandchildren, and we talk about that. And then we then have samples of the music, and then we ask the children to write their own story as lyrics. And then the next section is we talk about the instruments of the orchestra and the families of the orchestra and how each family has its own resonance. It has its own style, like the strings sound very different than the winds, and how maybe they would want to orchestrate their story. And we put it on a piece of artwork, and then we show it at the culminating concert. They come to a temple, and this year it's at a Ariel, and they hear the music that we've talked about and studied, and then I ask them questions about what they have learned. And the nucleus of it is that they learn about Sephardic Jews and how, in 1492, Columbus sailed the blue, and probably there were a lot of Jews on that ship coming to America, and why. And we've been doing it for 18 years, and we have the schools just every year want to participate. So we're very lucky.
Yeah. How do you do, I mean, it's not, you can't be doing all the teaching. Who is
No,
doing?
we have teaching artists that come. So myself and our education director from 18 years ago created a curriculum book. And then we then have the teaching artists. We have 5 or 6 teaching artists that have been going out for years and years, and they present the to the workshops. And then the kids meet me at the culminating concert.
And what age group is this that
It's
participates?
geared for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Very meaningful.
Listen, if
But
one of those kids, if one of
yeah,
those Latino kids gets into office and remembers that they had a positive experience with the Jewish culture, then I've done my job.
indeed. Indeed. This is why these conversations are so important. Yeah, absolutely. So that's been 18 years. But for years now, you've also, as you mentioned, you've been building a body of music related work about the Holocaust. And that's what I'd like to talk to. It's such a big subject. And, you know, in a way, we could have talked about that this entire program because you've been intimately involved, first of all, with that documentary Symphony of the Holocaust, which is a beautiful tribute to the life and music of Holocaust survivor Shoney Brown, um, who survived, and you conducted his symphony actually. Then there's been the Violins of Hope project, where you were the conductor for at the Soraya of the opening concert. And for those who don't know what the Violins of Hope are, they are Holocaust era instruments that were restored by an Israeli violin maker named Amnon Weinstein. May his memory be a blessing. He died earlier this year, who restored all these instruments that came to him in all different kinds of ways and brought them to the world for orchestras like yours to play and for people to hear them and their stories. And as a result of that, that is how you and I connected initially, because somebody got the bright idea, somebody on our board and you, that we should perhaps make a dramatic production of this and tell this story a little more fully. So that began with Stories from the Violins of Hope, which was produced in 2021 with a group of actors who just performed on stage with direct address, and then became a fully staged production, which I wrote with Rhonda Spinak, which was brought to Australia last year. And Noreen, you came with us. Of course, you were very integral to the whole project. So it has been a beautiful collaboration, and it's continuing because we are about to embark upon another collaboration or continued collaboration of this Stories from the Violins of Hope, now called The Violin Maker, which is going to be in Long Beach this spring, and it'll be a fully staged production, again based on the Violins of Hope story. You know, how do you think? I mean, I know I have my own view about it, but bringing these stories and Jewish music, how can, aside from that little person you mentioned, the student who may grow up to become somebody of influence, how does this counter anti-Semitism? How do you, what's your experience with that?
Well, I think it's important that anti-Semitism comes from people not knowing who we are, and education, how important education is. And when you are able to meet someone one-on-one, when you're able to tell the stories one-on-one, I think it's more impactful. I think I mean, listen, the Holocaust museums and education studies all over America. I was just in Nashville at the oldest Holocaust studies lecture series in the nation at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. And how did that come about is because a provost was in Germany and on a train in the 1950s and saw somebody with the numbers and asked him, "Tell me your story." And after hearing his story, he made it his life's goal to create a Holocaust lecture series. And it's still going on. and it's 47 years. And I think it's those personal interactions that break down barriers. And sometimes it's hard, especially for children, to relate to the enormity of the Holocaust and what it was. I know it was hard for me at 12 years old watching those films at Hebrew school. It was very hard and very devastating. So how do we make it more accessible? And I think the stories of the violins of hope is one of those ways, because it's easier to see a violin and hear the violin story than a person's story. And the people are dying. We are not going to have many Holocaust survivors left, but the violins are going to survive. And those stories need to be told. And I think, listen, when I was in Australia, the entire cast was not Jewish, as you know. And they became so engrossed in the stories of these violins and the Holocaust. And that was my job. I became a dramaturg because I didn't even know what a dramaturg was, to relay the stories of these violins and of the music and why this music was important. And I think music is also a way, a non-threatening way to approach these very difficult stories and for people to resonate with them, because we all resonate with music. We all resonate. And when we hear a beautiful melody and we learn that it was written while this person was in the camps trying to survive, you think, wow, and I think we're all going through a lot of emotional stuff right now. And I think if we all took a moment to just sing or to just listen to music, it will calm us all down and allow us to maybe listen to the other side a little better. I mean, we're divided not just with anti-Semitism, we have a lot of stuff going on. And I think music can be a way of bridging people.
Even within the Jewish world, I mean, there has been
Especially
traditionally a divide between the Ashkenazi world and the Sephardic world and the Mizrahi world, and to bring that music together and to realize each other's music, even within our own tribe, is quite something. Yeah,
That was one of my
you did.
programs I did actually was called Ashkina, which means love in Turkish. But it also, Ashkina was about love, ahava, Ashkina, and it was written by a Jewish composer, but it was performed by a Turkish ney player, which is and a choir, and it talked about the need to kind of be open to other people's culture. And when you're on stage, and I don't know, those of you who've been on stage with me know that there's no fighting. We're all there for one purpose, and that's to make music, and everything else stays out of the room. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you did a good job of that in Australia. I mean, I was really moved by the fact that here we had this non-Jewish cast that they really did not understand a lot of the text, and hearing the music and your being able to reach them through talking about the music, I think really, really helped to bring out the guts of what the text was talking about. So yeah, it was incredibly wonderful and beautiful, and we're going to continue to do that, which is really going to be a treat. It'll be a little different. I don't know. I just want to ask you now, what are your aspirations for this orchestra? It has such it seems to me has such wonderful possibilities to bring it, like the violins, to the world, a Jewish symphony that speaks in so many different directions. You said you're here basically in Southern California. But to bring that whole orchestra, is that even possible? Is that something you're dreaming about, or what are your aspirations for the LA Jewish Symphony?
Well, I think it's not possible to bring the whole orchestra because first of all, I have people in the LA Philharmonic and stuff like that. They have jobs. But to bring the repertoire, that is the key. Is I have built for 30 years, I have built an incredible library of repertoire that can be duplicated in other cities and in other countries. And that's really the goal. So we've started doing that a little bit. the pandemic actually, kind of put everything on hold for a while, but it allowed me to create videos, and those videos went viral, and people in other cities and stuff saw those videos. And then, good or bad, I had people reaching out to me all over the world about them wanting me to play their music, which is difficult because we only do 3 or 4 concerts a year. But and it's, with the war in Israel too, it's been very heart-wrenching when I get these emails from composers in Israel saying, please, will you perform my music? I feel, emotionally like I need to write, and I have nobody to perform the music, and everyone's at war. And I mean, they're still doing things in Israel, but I get these heartfelt letters. It's just, I can't do everything. So,
But
and I mean, we have a very small staff. We're just, 3 of us, and I'm only one person. And I think, I mean, I work every day, 60, 70-hour week just to do what I'm doing now. But
it's
so
true.
yeah, it's very, because I'm
Yeah,
not only the conductor and doing the music, I'm producing and helping with fundraising and grant writing, and I oversee every aspect of it, like Rhonda does. Rhonda and I have talked about the fact
exactly.
that they don't want to talk to anybody but you. But I think it's to take the repertoire and spread it around the world. And I'm
Yeah.
starting to do that by going to Nashville. I had a concert in New York and in Australia, and we'll see, we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand you. I mean, you're also working with rising composers and musicians so that they too can start doing some of what you do, at least make people aware of this music. And yeah, I mean, it's not an easy thing, but boy, it is so important. And so along those lines, let me just let you do a little bit of LAJS promotion here. Tell us about your upcoming programs coming up.
Well, as I mentioned, we have our culminating concert for the Patchwork, which is on December 9th. And this is a school concert in the morning at 11 o'clock at Adad Ariel. And we have the kids come before the concert, and they have an instrument petting zoo. Now, this is going to be interesting because we haven't done this since the pandemic.
An instrument petting
Petting
zoo?
zoo, right. So the
All right, tell
kids
me
get
what that is.
the kids actually get to try out the instruments. So we have all the instruments laid out, and they get to come and try it. But we haven't done that since the pandemic because of health reasons. We didn't know how to do it. So we've seen some other orchestras what they do. So we're going to try and implement it again this year. So that will be fun. And then the culminating concert's at 11 o'clock. It's open to the public, but you have to make reservations because we have limited seating. So we have about 600 kids coming, and I don't know how much room we have for the public. And then that same week, on December 14th, on Saturday night, I'm doing a program. So you probably know that Hanukkah and Christmas are on the same day this year.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
Erev Hanukkah, Erev Christmas.
Erev Christmas is Erev Hanukkah, is Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So I've been working with Cantor Lisa Picot, who's at the Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And both of us grew up here in LA. We both sang in Christmas caroling groups in order to make a living, when you're in college, the Dickinson carolers. And so she had this vision of creating a concert of all the favorite Christmas songs written by Jewish composers, which there is a lot of. But it's
Yes,
also
there
the
are.
reasons why these Jewish composers wrote this secular Christmas music is very interesting. So we're doing a program called A Very Kosher Christmas. And that's on December 14th. And it's just going to be fun. In addition to all of the Jewish composers who wrote Jewish music, we're also doing some Hanukkah songs. And we're also, I found a klezmer suite based on the Nutcracker. So we're going to do a klezmer version of the Nutcracker suite. And then Vivaldi's Winter mashed up with O Hanukkah, O Hanukkah. And then I found The Grinch Who Stole Hanukkah. And I worked with the writer. He was a comedy writer who wrote this, and it just cracked me up. And I asked him if he would let us do the poem and create an underscore, kind of like when you hear The Grinch That Stole Christmas, there's an underscore that goes with it. So we've created with two wonderful composers, Julie and Steve Bernstein, who, if you have kids or grandkids that watch the Animaniacs, they're the Grammy and Emmy award-winning composers for the Animaniacs. So that's part of a very kosher Christmas cab. And then December 20th, it's at Valley Beth Shalom, we're doing a service to honor Rabbi Schulweiss's 10th yard site, and Ami Aloni, who was the composer in residence there for 30 years, 25th yard site. And we're doing a big program on December 20th. And you can find all this on my website.
I think there are probably a lot of questions in the chat right now for you, but I'm going to ask you, would it be giving too much away if you gave us just a thumbnail sketch of why those Jewish composers wrote Christmas songs? Because I'm curious.
You're curious?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll give you one. Johnny Marks wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
Johnny Marks was a Jewish kid who was bullied in school. And he wrote Rudolph as the bullied reindeer who then saves the day with Santa Claus. And if you want to come, there's a pre-concert lecture by Professor Jonathan Friedman, who wrote a whole book on why these Jewish composers wrote these Christmas songs. But that's my favorite story about Rudolph.
Yeah. It's a really interesting phenomenon. I don't think it could have happened anywhere else, but in this country, where Christmas was secularized enough that they could write about it.
Yeah, and Irving Berlin wrote the most famous one, right?
Of course, but they're always about snow and stuff.
It's exactly. So that's
never about Jesus.
Snow, light, and miracles. That's how I programmed the thing. Lisa and I talked about what are the themes. Snow, light is both for both religions, and miracles. That's what so that's the theme of our whole concert.
Does it? Well, okay. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Noreen. We'll be talking a lot more in the months to come. But I want to thank you so much for coming on to Sunday with the Braid. This has really been great. But now there are questions in the chat, and I'm going to hand things over to Daphna. I want to thank Daphna as well, and to Susan Morgenstern, who was in the background also helping to produce this program. So take it away, Daphna.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. Noreen, we had quite a few questions in the chat for you. So the first question is from Gail Solo, who I'm going to read the whole thing because it was lovely. She said, Noreen, such a joy to learn from you, and you have been such a trailblazer. What can you, let me move it over. What can you share about the special nature of Jewish schmaltz and soul that so distinguishes and imbues our music?
Okay, well, let's see, the soul. For me, the soul is actually the sound of the Phragish mode. So remember I talked about what is Jewish music? So one of the things that distinguishes the sound that kind of resonates with your soul is called the Phragish mode. And this has this augmented second. I know I'm getting technical, but I'm going to sing it to you. So the Phragish mode is ba da dee da dee da dee da dee da da, and that's the Ashkenazi sound. And it's used in a lot of songs that we know. Hava nagila, hava nagila, hava, or Yismechu v'malechutecha, shamrei, 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 Shabbat, da 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 da. So I think that Phragish mode is very much what resonates with the Ashkenazi Jews. Sephardic Jews, it's completely different. It sounds more like Mexican music, Spanish music. My piano's way over there, so I can't really demonstrate it, but I do demonstrate it in other things. Mizrahi music uses a thing called makam, which are also little short motives of music that each has an ethos that goes with it, which is kind of an emotion. So I think for every culture of Judaism, each one has its own sound that resonates with them. And it's a cultural thing. For us, for me, Ashkenazi Jews, it's mostly that augmented second that resonates with our soul. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was
Gail?
amazing.
What do
We
you
loved
think?
hearing you sing.
Is
That was
that, can I get a
beautiful.
thumbs up, Gail?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely a thumbs up, at least from me. I think probably from Gail too. That was wonderful. Thank you. So the next question we have is from Sheila Barden, who asks, how can music heal this political rift and division in our Jewish communities? Is it going to the past through the violins of hope or through new collaborations?
I think both, actually. Uh, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question because the political rift is it's so deep. But I think it's going to take people coming together in a concert hall would be great to maybe start to soften that political divide. Uh, You know, I did two different concerts on October 7th for the 1 year anniversary. The first one was at JPL, at Jet Propulsion Lab, the campus on NASA. I was asked by their employee resource group, the Jewish employee resource group, to come and do something. They needed to do something. They didn't know what to do. So they brought in music. And I brought a string quartet and a clarinet, and people came and watched online. And it was just a moment of meditation to come together and to grieve and to remember. And I got to tell you, the head of DEI was there. The head of the council was there, of their lawyers, to make sure that what I said wasn't politically explosive. And I was censored as to what I could say. I could play whatever music I wanted, but I couldn't talk about certain things. So that was very interesting for me. And I think it kind of symbolizes what's going on, that music can bring people together, but words divide them. The second one I did was at Ballet Shalom, and that was different because it was everybody knew what they were coming for. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think if we can get people in the same room and just to listen to music, that would be a first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Our next question comes from Jean Kaufman, who is curious how we can access some more of your videos. I think the sizzle reel probably really it was very inspiring. Are there any other videos that can be
We do
viewed
have a
online?
YouTube channel, but unfortunately that the union has come down that we are not allowed to make anything public anymore. So you got to come to our live concerts.
I mean, hey, there you go. You gotta go live. That's how it goes, unfortunately. I mean, it's
Mhm.
good. It's good to be there in person to hear the music
Yeah,
live.
I have some choir videos up there that are public. There are some that are public up there, but you have to kind of our YouTube station, you can see what's public and what's not, but we can't put everything up anymore.
Do you have any recordings on any
I
streaming
do. I
platforms?
actually have three recordings. You can find them on our website. The Women of Valor, which was an oratorio that I commissioned, and it's about 10 women of the Bible and their perspective, rather than from the perspective of the man, is from the perspective of the woman. And we do have that up on our website, and you can access that. I did a Zeisel recording of his ballet, Jacob and Rachel. Eric Zeisel escaped the Holocaust, and his grandson is Randy Schoenberg, who was the featured lawyer in The Women of Gold. He was the lawyer who negotiated with the Supreme Court to get the Klimt painting back to its original owner. And the music of Eric Seisel is great, and I do have a recording of that. And then another recording up by Sarah Stratton. It's not Jewish, but it's beautiful music. So those three are up on our website.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I am now going to throw it over to Rhonda Spinek, our artistic director, who has a question for you.
Yeah, hi Noreen. First of all, thank you so much for being here today. You are just so inspiring and such a wealth of knowledge. I always feel like whenever I'm with you, I learn so much. Um, and that brings me to my question. You being this gem of Los Angeles and gem of our nation, who 30 years is a huge milestone, and you're not retiring soon, but have you thought at all about who's going to take your place? Because it would be someday, 30 years from now. You want to,
Conductors never die, don't you know
oh,
that?
and I think that's great, but it seems that it would be horrible for this beautiful thing to end at some point when you're not going to do it. So have you been thinking at all about that? And I mean, we don't like to
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, you have the same question, right? It's the
I
legacy. What
do.
are we going to do after we're not able to do it anymore? I have just gone into a wonderful relationship with Milken Community High School. So they, while I was in Australia, actually contacted me and said, we would like to talk to you about legacy issues for the LA Jewish Symphony. I was like, and I had been thinking about it. And then they said, so we had several meetings, and I said, until you have a space that has a performing arts space, it might not, you're competing with, Brentwood School and Harvard Westside School, and you need a performance space. So they bought the AJU, as everybody knows. Milken now Community High School owns the campus, AJU campus, and it's called Milken East. And so we've been in negotiations, and this is my first year as a scholar in residence of the Performing Arts residency at Milken, and I've been working with the kids and working with their teachers, and talking about the future. And Milken, the Milken Community High School is going to be the diamond in the LA Jewish education system. And my kids went to New Jew, now De Toledo, which is a wonderful school, and Shalhevet's a wonderful school. But Milken up there on that mountain has a very special mission and outreach that I think is going to. So I've started that legacy issue there. So we'll see.
Oh, great. That's so
And
wonderful.
I get to use the Gindi Auditorium,
Yep. No, it
which is a
was.
beautiful space.
Thank you for answering that. Back to you, Daphne.
Thank you so much. All right, well, we have a few announcements, so hang in there, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to Noreen for being here. It was a lovely treat for us and for the audience to hear from you and learn about your career and the inspirations behind it and all that you have coming up. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
So
And
thank
us
you.
together too.
And us together. Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful job as always moderating this conversation. And I also want to throw a thank you to Susan, who is behind the scenes, Susan Morgenstern, who is helping to run technical elements and also co-produces this event. So we love Susan. Thank you. So again, we have a few things coming up I want everybody to know about. We are opening our brand new space. Woo! Amazing. In Santa Monica. We are so excited to finally be able to bring people into the Braid space once again. And I want to let you know that we have a gratitude open house coming up. Let me pull up my notes here so I don't get any dates wrong. Sunday, November 24th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Join us. We're going to honor our artists in residence. We're also going to have a little art talk. It's going to be wonderful. You get to see the new space. It's beautiful, and you get to enjoy the new space that you're going to be coming to, hopefully, quite frequently. So we're very excited about that. And our first show that's going to be taking place, our first long show run is Not That Jewish. It's back. Monica Piper is back. Her show is incredible. Um, just a side note for myself, I sat in the back office the last time she did the show for us, and I laughed every single time at the same jokes for like 4 weeks. So it never gets old. It's really an incredible show. Please come starting December 12th. We are opening up her show, and you can check out our website to see all of the dates and times as well. Lastly, if you have any family members in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, we have an amazing, amazing one-day retreat coming up this Sunday, November 17th, that I'm co-producing with David Chu, one of our other colleagues. It is a mental health and resiliency retreat. So we have amazing guests. Jesse Israel is a meditation expert. We have Barry Goldstein, who is a reality TV show shrink and a game board expert. And we have an amazing show we put together. So we're really trying to bring the young Jewish professional community together to just be together in the space and time and in person and enjoying really great content together. So that is also, I think hopefully Susan's able to post that link as well. So I'm gonna cut it off from here. It's just so many things I could probably keep going, but we want to say thank you to those who bought a ticket for this. For those who came and just attended, we also appreciate you being here. Please feel free to donate to the Braid if you have a little bit of extra money hanging around. We really appreciate your support, and we will see you at the next event, whatever that may be. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you so much.